Welcome back to Naval Action and episode 19 of A Letter to the King. For those of you new to the Letter of the King, this is my attempt to keep you advised of what's going on in the biff, the bash and the thrash that is PvP Euro 1. And a very different week it has been this week. We had the patch. I have to be honest, I'm a little underwhelmed by the patch. I was really looking forward to the land being drawn into the ports. I think that's still being tested. And I had a bit more hopes for the officers. I was hoping we'd have more than one officer and you could sort of assign them to your ships like you do with upgrades. The new perks are really interesting. I'll be doing a thing on the perks later in the week. But I was a little bit that there wasn't more sort of variety, different officers to play with. So I'm rather hoping that isn't the end of that. But the perks and a couple of the new modules are very interesting. And the new acceleration and de-acceleration mechanics are also very interesting. The ships handle very differently. Some of them, I think it feels more natural, especially the big lumbering ships. Some of the smaller ships can go backwards quite quickly, which is a bit of a surprise. But anyway, let's focus on what's been going on as far as combat's concerned. If you recall the state of play at the start of the week, the US had really pushed hard down into the Bahamas and started their merry march up Florida, and eyeing up the southern coast of the US. Spain had very much been broken. The Battle of Santiago and the fall of a number of their ports to the Dutch and the British had pretty much put Spain out of the fight, is fair enough to say, out of the fight. The Swedes had managed to actually hold their northern borders. They'd very much been a one-port wonder where they could contest one port, but if you pushed another one, they'd fold. But they'd managed to hold, and their grip was tightening. The Carebear Alliance was more or less hanging together with the odd rogue clan. And the Brits had pretty much won the War of the Yucatan, or the Battle of the Yucatan. It's a never-ending war, I suppose. Let's have a look what happened this week in what could be a dangerously short episode of A Letter to the King. So the Carebear Alliance stood for another week. I think it's in its 7th week now, so there's a surprise. But there you go. The French lost another port on Haiti. They're now down to just one port on Haiti. The Swedes pushed the pirates hard and actually managed to push onto the eastern side of the Bahamas, grabbing up a couple of ports there. A lot of gank fleets. The Danes and the French especially, giving the Brits a good biffing. As I mentioned last week, though, it tends to be you have maybe one or two successful runs as a gank fleet, and then you've stirred the bee's nest, put your hand into the ant hill, and out they come and start biting you. And I guess what's annoying a few people is that as soon as the odds are good or overwhelming with the gank fleets, and it's not just here, it would be around Mortimer and La Habana and everywhere else, the aggressors tend to hide in the battle screen, and I really think the devs need to do something about the battle screen. I think basically kick you out of it after 10 minutes and give some signal to the aggressor should you all have logged off. And obviously logging off in a battle screen means when you log on, you should be there in the open world and not back into the battle screen. So the battle screen at the moment is probably my most annoying thing with the game mechanics. So let's hope they get something sorted about that. There was a poor chap who'd obviously logged out on his in a battle. He was in a victory. And he logged in at some obscure time in the morning and tragically got traced halfway across the map before he was eaten. I think it's happened to most of us when you've logged in after a battle and you sort of think you're safe and you're not. So the gang fleets, they come, they fight, they hide, they go away. The pirates managed to retake New Orleans. The Brits had taken New Orleans very much as a bit of a in-your-face, haha, to show they could strike anywhere. Also, there was a bit of teasing for the French there, because I know a lot of the French think New Orleans should probably be a second capital for them. It'd be a good idea, I think, in general, if every nation had perhaps 2 or 3 untakeable capitals, so you can't get pushed into a corner of the map. You'd always have an option to come out from somewhere else. Maybe that'll happen in the long run. The Brits got pushed out of Baracoa by the pirates in one of the few wins for the week of the pirates. Actually, the pirates, they took New Orleans as well, as I just said. They also took Baracoa. And there is rumours that the pirates are mustering a fleet. One of the old clans has started to stir again. So that should be interesting, especially given the fact there's now a large alliance on their doorstep. The pirates are well and truly in the vice at the moment. The Dutch have made it up onto the northeastern side of Cuba, as have the Swedes. So the Swedes have really extended themselves now across the map, and this is probably the best position the Swedes have been in at least 3 months. So well done, Sweden. And the Dutch managed to capture the secret islands wherever they are, Kids Harbour and North Inlet. One of the battles there this week was absolutely epic. I think it was about 15 on 15 thereabouts, maybe 12 on 12, 15 on 15. And it ended up with just 3 ships surviving, people getting caught by the circle coming in. Probably would have been a draw, and I think the battle was won with about 90 seconds or 30 seconds to go, as one of the pirate defenders got clipped by the circle. Hopefully that circle won't be there for too long, and in another 4 to 6 weeks we'll have the new mechanics in, so it's always a bit pesky. It's like being beaten on penalties when you get eaten by the circle. No one likes to lose on penalties, but of course we all like to win on penalties, so such is the life. But the secret island, wherever it is now in the hands of the Cloggies, and that's a hard one to get back, because if your enemies have ports there, it's a 45-minute sail from most places to the secret island, and now the Cloggies have it. It'll be difficult for the pirates to get it back, assuming that some of the Dutch have left themselves a port in the secret island. So well done to the Dutch chaps. The Americans, again, have had a great week. They've continued to push the pirates in the Bahamas. They now have a foothold on Cuba, and they've actually started pushing across continental USA, the southern part of the United States, grabbing 2 more ports. And, this is the biggest area, the biggest concentration of pirate ports now. And we'll be interested to see how the Americans go with that one. And the US have finally joined up with their allies. I don't know what's going on. I should have been drinking. With their allies this week. So they might now start to see some direct support rather than just the 2 frontal support that they've been receiving by effectively allies pushing on the same enemies. Now, the big news of the week is there's a new treaty. It's set in jelly, this treaty, unshakable jelly. It's the what could possibly go wrong treaty. Now, it's very well intentioned, actually, as far as treaties are concerned. The Spanish and the French are on holidays. It is literally the summer holidays over there. And the Spanish and the French suffer from the same condition. Lots of jokes to be had, but I'm not going to make any. And that is that the Spanish nation is made up mostly of Spanish players, and the French nation is made up mostly of French players. Now, this means that their play time, the zone they play in, is quite concentrated. And their numbers are very focused in those time zones. And having been somewhat beaten in the last 3 or 4 weeks. The fleets are exhausted. The players are exhausted from having to log on every night to try and hold the line. And it was very apparent even at the start of the week that both the French and the Spanish had kind of had enough. There was defiance in them both. They're both very proud nations. There was defiance in them both. There was elements of delusion on occasion. However, the Brits, having been trampled on recently and also seen what happened to their allies, the US, only a few weeks ago, were very conscious of not sort of turning into some sort of 100-port mega machine. And actually, early on in the week, the Brits simply stopped attacking. It was a decision made by the British Council not to push any further. So there was a cessation of assaults in the Yucatan. There was a decision not to push across the south side of the USA and turn the map red and push the Spanish completely out of the western flanks of the map. There was a decision not to push any further into Cuba. And not much further against the Danes in Haiti. And after a lot of consultation with the Dutch and to a lesser extent the US, although they were involved at the end of the week, I'm not sure if the Swedes have been involved, we'll see. Fundamentally, the British and the Dutch and the Spanish, with, I understand, and I'll expect a whole bunch of comments on this, with an understanding from the US, have come up with a treaty that basically takes Spain out of the port war for the time being. And what it basically means is that the Dutch will effectively form a buffer between the British and the Spanish so that Jamaica can't be attacked and the western side of Cuba can't be attacked directly by either of the British or the Spanish. The US and the Spanish are still engaged in some biffo. Now, whether or not they're going to take ports off each other is yet to be seen. The British will screen and will defend the US and will respond to aggression against the US. And the Brits are moving fleets into the area. All weekend, the Brits were moving fleets over to protect their American friends. So you can see that the obvious places are Cayo Romano and Key West and Cayo dell'Alacote. So the Brits will now be operating as a direct screen for the US. And in return for these buffer zones, the Brits are going to pull out of the northern tip of the Yucatan as well as the western side. These ports here will be ceded back to the Spanish. That's what the treaty says. Open world PvP is encouraged. And basically this is to give the Spanish a chance to regroup and get their player base working again, so get some ships built so that they can fight again, maybe in another 4 to 6 weeks when the new port mechanics comes in and the new alliance mechanics comes in. We'll be able to see a whole new set of treaties. Now look, this map was drawn up by the same people who drew up the maps for India and Pakistan and Afghanistan. The same people who did Palestine, Israel, Yemen and Egypt. So I mean, what could possibly go wrong? We will have to see. There's a lot of grumpy monkeys over this treaty. There's a lot of folks who reckon it won't last a week. I know quite a lot of the Dutch weren't happy with who and how it was originally done, although I know later on in the week there was a concerted effort to ensure a broader consultation. It's player-made content, guys. It may work, it may not work. It's not the end of the world. It's pixels and everything. I tip of the hat to all the guys who spent hours, literally hours, trying to put this together with the direct intention of ensuring that the Spanish player base had still some fun and that the Brit felt as though they got just rewards from their efforts against Spain, and the Dutch sort of operating not quite as a mediator but to sort of as a agent of constraint and control. So let's see how that goes. I still think there's a lot of fighting to be had between the Americans and the pirates. I'm not sure how it's going to work between the Americans and the Spanish. That'll be perhaps the gasoline point for this treaty. There's a little bit more to it. The Brits have said that these 3 ports here, Zupar, Tantum Kuzumul and Tullum, which are a deep water, a shallow water and a regional, they can be attacked at any time by the Spanish that they want to. And obviously the Brits reserve the right to defend them and the right to take them back, and that's to allow the Spanish, if they want to have some PvP, to get stuck in. So that's these ports here around Tantum Kuzumul. And the Brits have also agreed to flip these ports here on the southeast tip of Haiti. And these ports are going to be flipped back to the French time zones to allow the French to have somewhere to fight. It is the southwest. Obviously, I'm in need of sleep. So the goal is there that probably the Dutch will take them and then the Brits will take them back and flip the port timers on them. So the goal there is to give the French some port battles that can be had, as well as some of the guys who can maybe get involved and defend those. So we'll see how that goes. I'm mixed, I have to say. I'm mixed about the treaty. I definitely don't want to see the Spanish wiped off the map, as much as it is good to crush all your enemies before you and bathe in the lactation of their women. Destroying a player base in the long run does nothing for any of us. So hopefully I'll let the Spanish back in and give the French a chance to engage in some port battles. For the Brits, though, it does mean we've got no aggressive port battles to be had, and I, for one, am underwhelmed by that. We'll just have to see how that goes. I'm sure there'll be some fight to be had somewhere. I suppose it gives us a chance to respec all our ships with our new perks and grind our officers back up in some AI fleeting and learn how to stop a bloody ship without it going backwards at 6 knots. Where will the biffo be next week? Well, maybe there won't be any biffo next week. The US perhaps pushing on from Florida across the south coast, across the Gulf of Mexico here. Will the gentleman's war engender any biffo? Let's hope so. I think the pirates are going to A, make a bit of a comeback, and then B, meet fierce resistance. So let's see how that goes. Will they try and push into the Americans? Will they try and push into Cuba? Will they give the Swedes a biffing, or will the Brits use this as a bit of an area for some port battles? What about the secret islands? Are they even there? Who knows? And Haiti. There is talk Haiti might just become a free-for-all. So let's see how that goes. I suspect, though, the greatest battles will be on the forums. So sharpen your pens, ladies and gentlemen pirates, because I think this is where the most shots will be fired. The other thing that needs a bit of work is bottles. Back in loads of them. So many bottles. You sail out to pick up a sealed bottle and you find 3 on the way. And then you have to get those and they take you further away and further away and further away and further away. And then you have to sail back for 2 hours and then you realise it's time to go to bed and you didn't actually fire any shots at all, but you now have 14 sets of golden studded sails. I suspect the drop rate on the bottles is wrong. And I hope it gets fixed soon, because as much as it's like lotto tickets, it's like being given free lotto tickets. You can't not go to them. Once you pop them, you can't stop. Bottles, come on, let's make them rare. Let's have a look at the tally board. The Brits had a self-enforced let's not attack everybody, so they're on 81 still. The Americans did well again, 4 more ports, all from the pirates. The Dutch did well, 3 more ports. I've mixed up these 2 arrows here. So the French actually broke even, as did the Spanish. The pirates had another shocking week, 29 ports. The Danes snuck a port, and the Swedes are doing really well. They picked up another 5 ports. So now, amongst the Spanish, the French, the Dane, and the pirate coalition, the strongest nation by ports held is the nation of Freetown, which is now doing better than any of the members of the French, Spanish, pirate and Dane coalition. So there you go. Who'd have thunk it? Well, I managed to stretch it out to make it an episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, and put some comments. Let's see what people think about the various treaties. I personally think we are in desperate need of the new port mechanics and in desperate need of the new alliance game functions to come in, to allow everybody to reboot. Maybe even a port reset. Please don't take all my stuff away, giving me back as redeemables. And that's it for this week's Letter to the King. I will see you on the oceans, and I will catch you.